Welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We are here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. And I'm going to pop up a little video here about what we do in the cannabis space as nurses, and then we'll take a deep dive today into our topic, mental health, cannabis, and psychedelics.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship, and what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine. And I'm excited to really bring this into light. There's a company called Canam that we're merging with, and we will now be doing global education.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers.
There we go. Growing in health, growing in cannabis. Hi, everyone. My name is Sherri Tutkus, and I'm the Vice President of Nursing at Holistic Caring in the Green Nurse. And not only am I a registered nurse, but I'm also a cannabis nurse, cannabis patient, advocate, activist, and a very passionate podcaster, here to share the love of plant medicine and all the benefits it provides to our endocannabinoid system. And you're going to hear me talking about that a lot. So today we have a very special guest, Nurse Gina Feletarhas, who will be discussing her journey of becoming a psychiatric nurse practitioner in the cannabis and psychedelic space as a clinician. And so we're very, very lucky to have her with us. She's interning with us at Holistic Caring in the Green Nurse. And she's been a registered nurse for over 24 years, working in many hospital and community settings, such as Med-Surg, plastic surgery with breast cancer patients. And she's been a traveling nurse for over 6 years. For over the past 17 years, she's had a successful career as an aesthetic nurse injector. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And she's been doing cannabis nursing and is currently in graduate school to become a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. And she'll be specializing in psychedelic-assisted therapy. Gina also has an energy healing practice and is certified in Reiki. And in her spare time, I don't know how she has any, she volunteers with homeless organization doing street medicine, and we'll find out what that means. She's also an advocate and activist with several organizations such as Americans for Safe Access, Non-Toxic San Diego, Showing Up for Racial Justice, and she stands for all animal rights issues. Gina, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. You know, just having you on board for the short amount of time that we've had you on board so far, I've learned so much, and really, really grateful to have you here. It's just so amazing to have more nurses even go into becoming a nurse practitioner so they can do the psychedelic guided assistance and work in that space, and really, really upping the ante. Because as you know, as we push the needle towards legalization for both cannabis and psychedelics, there's a stigma associated with that. And basically we want to dissolve those stigmas. And so, like I said, we talk about things here that people don't want to talk about. Why? Because we need to decrease that stigma for healing. Everyone deserves to feel good. Everyone deserves to heal. And there's multiple pathways to get to that end result. And really, what is the end result? Living a quality life, right? A high quality life, living your best life. So welcome. So, we all don't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to be a nurse practitioner, specifically a psychiatric mental health practitioner. And also too, cannabis, we don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a cannabis nurse and go into psychedelics. And because there's usually a very compelling story that surrounds that. So our viewers are going to be very interested to hear yours, because you are, a medical professional, becoming a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and nurses are the most trusted profession for over 20 years in a row. So it's going to be really great to hear your story. So I'm going to put my glasses on and let you dig in. Why cannabis nursing?
Well, thank you, Sherri, for that intro. And so, yes, for me, it was about 2017 that I became interested in cannabis as medicine. And at the time, I was working with breast cancer patients. I was not on the oncology side of things, but I was on the plastic surgery side of things. So women were getting their breast reconstructions. And I had noticed that we were prescribing a lot of narcotics and opioids. And so many times the patients just could not tolerate them, made them nauseous, loopy, just sleeping through the day. And there really wasn't any other type of thing to offer. And then some patients would start to ask, kind of like in a really uncomfortable way, asking about cannabis. And it really was not a popular topic in the Western traditional healthcare field. And so, I think for, a few reasons that kind of already mentioned, but one being the stigma. So even, the patients, they're like, is it okay? They'd kind of wait for the doctor to leave the room and then ask like, so, hey, what do you think if I take this edible instead of this narcotic? And another reason is just simply lack of information. We just are not educated on how does one incorporate cannabis into their regimen. And then probably one of the biggest reasons is also, even though in 2017 it was medically legal, but it's still not federally legal. So doctors are in this sort of position, right? They're in this space where they, are like, I'm not going there kind of thing. Or if they did, it was just very carefully with what they were, wanting to say, or even like to give the go ahead,
Right.
And so when patients, I noticed increasingly were starting to ask about it. And frankly, I didn't know the answer. And I mean, I knew a little bit, just like what everybody else kind of heard. And I thought, okay, well, I better find out. So at that time is when I joined the American Cannabis Nurses Association. And through that, I found an online course. And so once I took the course, it was like, okay, game on. I had no idea. It was so enlightening. And it was like, what? like, we have this
We
available.
have an endocannabinoid system. I
Yes,
mean, once you go down that endocannabinoid system rabbit hole, ooh, and you're creating a program for us, which we'll talk about in a minute. Once you
yes,
start going down that rabbit hole of learning, it just takes you on different twists and turns, and
exactly.
the
And I
more
had no
I
idea.
learn, yeah, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, right? And so this is what's so
Exactly.
good about doing this.
So I had never heard of the endocannabinoid system, and I was like, why don't we get this in nursing school? So, and just in case anyone is listening that doesn't know, you go to nursing school, you learn about all the systems, GI, endocrine, circulatory. We also have an endocannabinoid system, which is very important. And basically, in a quick nutshell, is homeostasis for your entire body. So very important. And I was like, I just can't believe I didn't know about this.
Me
So
too.
that's what started. And then I was wanting to, like, okay, so how do I be a bridge now that I know this in between plant medicine and the traditional healthcare? And that's when I started doing presentations that was mostly geared towards seniors, and started working with holistic caring. And that was very enlightening. So Elizabeth Mack taught me so much, and it it was a great experience. I just remember this lovely senior lady around 80 years old, and she had contacted Holistic Caring to figure out, how do I stop taking this Percocet? And I was like, 80 and you're taking Percocet? Because that's what the doctors are prescribing. And so our elders, have so much pain in some way at that time. And she was given Percocet, but she couldn't make it through the day. She was sleeping through the day, like really no quality of life. And so Holistic Caring went, and we taught her how to do the tincture. And I believe it was about 2 weeks, and she had stopped taking the Percocet. And definitely, yes.
Wow.
So
That's
so that was it. I was, once you walk through the door, you can't come back. So
Well, that's the thing too, is, and I'm going to pull up the slide. I was going to save this for the end, but I think it's just really, really important because patients are suffering. Seriously, patients are suffering. I received this today and I posted it up on social media because it's really, really important. Hi, Green Nurse team. I'm a Massachusetts resident who uses THC and CBD primarily to help with stress, anxiety, and also insomnia, restless, and I'm a light sleeper. I'm a few years shy of 60. And other than those issues, I'm generally pretty healthy. I do not have a medical marijuana card. Massachusetts is legal both for adult use and medical. And I've been treating myself with cannabis tincture on a do-it-yourself basis, figuring it out, experimenting, trying to figure out strains and dosing. And so my main question for your team is this. I would be interested in finding a new primary care doctor for annual checkups who is cannabis friendly. Dear doctors, it's time for you to become cannabis friendly. People are knocking on our doors, asking for physicians who understand cannabis as medicine. I'm fine with a nurse practitioner or an MD, and I'm most interested in being able to be honest about my cannabis medicine and also to be able to discuss openly with a cannabis knowledgeable practitioner who can assist me with my cannabis protocol. Also, I'd be looking for a practitioner who accepts health insurance. I have Harvard Pilgrim, and I wish to avoid out-of-pocket expenses if possible. Now, we're getting these letters from patients. Patients are calling us up. I don't want to work with my doctor anymore because they don't understand cannabis as a medicine and they're not supporting me on my journey.
Wow.
That to me is extremely, extremely sad. Extremely sad.
It is. And that is why nurses are so important, to be this bridge and being the advocate for patients like this, because they do deserve an alternative and a right of choice for their medicine.
Yeah, I completely agree. We should, everything should be laid out on the table. As clinicians, we have a moral, ethical obligation, number one, to do no harm. Number two, to improve quality of life and provide education and information around specific tools that can improve quality of life, whether you believe in it or not. Seriously, see something, say something. If you see something working for others, take an interest. Even if you don't believe in cannabis itself as medicine, you need to understand the endocannabinoid system if you're a clinician, because it is the most important system in our body. It regulates all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all those little neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell your body to either do something or to stop doing something.
Mhm.
So regardless of whether patients use cannabis or not, regardless of that plant, patients have an endocannabinoid system, and every single therapy, every single prescription, every single thing that we tell patients to do or not do affects the endocannabinoid system. So as
Yeah.
clinicians, we have an obligation to know what supports the system, what doesn't, and if we're prescribing something that doesn't support the system, what can we do to mitigate side effects, to make sure our body is optimizing those therapies that are being prescribed. Cannabis is
Exactly.
amazing, right? It bridges the gap from what people aren't getting from conventional medicine. It decreases side effects. People can decrease the rely on pharmaceuticals. And we just did a podcast a couple weeks ago on harm reduction. Right?
Right.
We've seen that over and over and over
Mhm.
again in our practice, working with thousands of patients. No one needs to suffer. And as clinicians, as nurses, we're here speaking loud and proud, as stigma fighters and educators to really help push the needle towards getting this into the conventional system. We will see a huge turnaround in so many different patients' lives. So I just got off topic there. But, this kind of leads into, cannabis nursing. You've
Mhm.
worked with patients that were asking, and so now you have the tools and you've been working with patients to help them. So I want to get a little bit more because you have such a very interesting nursing career. Um, so
You can't say it's not well-rounded.
well, that's I love that. It's very, very, it's just you kind of follow your bliss, follow your passion, and there's nurses can do so many different things. So what brought you into working in aesthetics? So when you said that you are an aesthetic nurse injector. So what
Mhm.
that means is, smoothing out fine lines, adding a little plump, a little filler, right? Is that what that means? It's about improving physical appearance, correct?
Yes, that is
Okay,
correct.
cool.
So, while all of the cannabis and the breast cancer, and I was doing all that, I have also been an aesthetics injector since 2005, 6. I don't even remember anymore. It's been a long time. So I am very grateful and blessed that I have had such a long career in it. I've actually had clients from 15 years ago that have followed me and I still see, and we've become
Nice.
friends. And so it really has been amazing in that way. The overall aesthetics is great. Nurses really love to get into it because patients aren't sick. The schedule is pretty flexible, and you kind of can be creative and artistic with it. So it is definitely a very unique place
Yeah.
in nursing. And for me, the industry has changed quite a bit in all of these years. And so back in my day, so we didn't have social media. Okay,
Mhm.
so we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Snapchat and Snapchat filters, and so it was a very different practice back in 2004, 5, and 6. And you connected with your patient. It was about maybe enhancing what the person's natural structure was and maybe getting a little ahead of the game. And now it is really different with um, basically the aesthetics. it's almost about there's options to actually want something different. So whereas before it was like, let's just enhance what you have and improve upon that, if that's the words. But the now it's like, okay, so I want a different
I want a
everything.
bigger lip. I want a
I
bigger lip.
want a different shape of the lip. Okay.
Right. You can
The
do that.
shape of the lip, shape of the face, shape of the nose. It's about, like, okay, I don't want to look like this. I want to look like this. So there's just a lot of, in one way that is, really exciting and creative and cool that we even have, these capabilities.
Yeah.
It is. And then on the other sides of it, I have to sometimes ask, what is the driving force behind that?
What's the motivating factor, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. So there is just a lot more to it. People bringing me YouTube videos to say, can you do this? Or I want this, or how do I look like my Snapchat filter? Those kind of things that, within reason, we can do things, but the syringe is not a magic wand either.
Not a magic wand, but I can imagine it's a very intimate experience working with people because they're very vulnerable, right?
Absolutely.
So there's like a mental health component to that where people are
Mhm.
seeking to improve the physicality of their face using different techniques that are available. And so then that becomes an intimate experience between, patient and nurse who's actually doing that, because it is, because you're right there in the face with whatever you have.
Right. And so that is exactly right. I have been saying, especially over these last few years, that it's not even about the Botox. Like, it's usually about something else that they want to discuss while they're in the kind of like, a bartender here's like or a hairdresser. So it's exactly the same. You kind of know everything going on in that person's life. And so I do love that heart-to-heart connection with that person, and we're usually talking about whatever of the other topic might be. And actually, since I've gotten into energy work, it has put another component on top of that. So because our hands, energy workers are always, so no matter touching the patient's face, and
So you could call in those healing frequencies in your hand and do a little set intention to bring in Reiki energy while you're working with that client, right? And so that's
So
beautiful.
when I start my day, I actually give Reiki to the products. So like bless the Botox and energize the products themselves, as well as my client list. So I look to see who's coming in that day and just say like a little gratitude blessing for. Because I feel there's always a reason this person is in my chair and that I happen to be the nurse for them. So I want to honor that connection. And so it starts from the beginning with the product and then touching their face. And it is can be quite intimate. Yes.
So what
Mm-hmm.
do you think about, are you women using CBD products on their skin after they have these things? Are you finding,
Well, we need to talk more about that. Yes, for sure.
All
Yes.
right. Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
Everyone should be taking CBD as a supplement and also in their face products. Yes.
Exactly. A little bit of oil goes a long way in your makeup. That's what I do. Just a little squirt of the 1-to-1 and put it right in the makeup and smooth it right on. Smooth it right on.
I love that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So here we are. So we go from, Med-Surg, we do breast cancer care, aesthetics, now cannabis nursing. Now we're getting into, mental health. Why the career change to mental health and back to grad school? And I think that leads into psychedelics. I think it's kind of it kind of goes side by side, right?
Right. There are a few things entwined in there because it was not just, like a one thing. It was more like when the universe is telling you in multiple ways with all these signs, like go that way. So that is kind of how it all came together. But the main reason I would say is because of my own experiences doing psychedelic assisted therapy.
As a
And
patient, as a
as
patient, or as a, okay, there you
yes,
go.
so as a patient, and I have done so it's been a year and a half, and I have done 5 journeys. But the first year I did 4, and this year will be 2 or 3. I'm not sure yet. But
What substance?
the first 2 were MDMA, and all the rest were psilocybin.
Okay, very good.
Yes, and I would say that over the course of this year and a half, well, let me precede this by saying that if you had asked me about going back to school 2 years ago, it would have been like, no way, not a chance, absolutely no, wouldn't even think about it. And so it was not like just a no, it would be like F no.
A
So
hard no.
this is a hard no. We tell ourselves all these limiting beliefs, like I'm too old, I'm not smart enough, I can't afford it. Like I wouldn't even let myself like even think about this. And what I didn't realize maybe at the time, which I've come to understand, is that our egoic mind tries so hard to maintain the status quo and where you're comfortable, and almost just kind of locked into a position like everything's fine, I'm good, nobody move, we're keeping life just like this, everything's fine. So I was just like telling myself, okay, set this life up, this is how it is, this is what there is for me, basically. And so that is the beauty of doing psychedelic assisted therapy, is that lock, it becomes unlocked, like the door opens. So right, so all of those sort of limiting things that we tell ourselves, and the egoic mind will go to great lengths to keep you in place where you are. So psychedelics has the ability just to kind of open that. And then what happened for me is I could see the possibilities. It was like, oh, the whole world is a possibility. It's just like full of opportunities. And so all of those things I was telling myself were no longer there. And it's just like, oh, okay, age, I'm 51, and so I have not been in nursing school since 1998. So that is like, what, 24 years. And so just thinking that pre journey, so I now life is like pre journey and post journey work. Right. So, but pre-journey work, it was like, whoa, like you can't go back to school at that age. You don't even like aren't going to be able to figure that out and keep up or whatever. So, post-journey work, time and age isn't even really a thing. So, it's like, wow, every day is just like this brand new, how do I want to experience like the rest of my life? And just such a beautiful starting point. Every day you're like at choice, and so
intention. You're living your life with intention.
yes. So before I was very cerebral about, okay, the job is this and this, and my choices are this, and I live here, and we need logic, to kind of get through the world and navigate the world. But it comes now from a deeper space. Is like, what do I want to impart onto the world? How do I want to experience the rest of my time? And so age became like a non-issue. And so that actually, it was in the 4th journey. I had said during the journey, well, maybe I should be a nurse practitioner and go into psych. And after the journey, I interviewed 4 schools. I picked one. I got in. I applied for school loans. I got them. And within 2 months, I was enrolled in grad school. And thank you. Thank
Wow,
you.
that's amazing. Just
Thank
from
you.
being open. And look at that. You
For
opened
being
up your mind to something and the
Mhm.
universe just lined it right up. All you had to do was say yes.
Right. Exactly.
Wow, that's
Yes.
amazing.
So there was a lot, I was a person, I am a person that came from a lot of previous therapy, probably since my 20s. And so a lot of the cognitive, tried many things. And I'm not saying that they weren't beneficial, they absolutely were. And I had a lot of growth during all of those years. But I also kind of knew inside that there was just something still like a block or a wall that I couldn't quite get through, and that was keeping me from a lot of potential. um you know Subconsciously I didn't even know what they were, but I just felt like maybe um I had plateaued, and I always considered myself a very open and willing,
Yep,
therapy patient. And
yep.
so the
Oh yeah.
difference now is, um after doing the journeys and you have this willingness to be open and to let go, which also has some to do with set and setting that we can
Mhm.
chat
Yeah.
about as well. But it opened, and I have released a lot and definitely made had so much more growth in such a
Yeah.
very fast period of time. Mhm.
It is very, very amazing. I've seen that with a lot of patients that we've worked with, and I've experienced it personally. Cannabis saved my life physically. Psychedelics
Mhm.
got me living again because of what my journey took me on. I mean, there's a lot of patients that go through this. I've talked about this before, medical and pharmaceutical trauma. And then as a nurse clinician working in, so you think about this, it's really interesting doing the work internally to figure it out. Taking care of patients in the intensive care unit and trauma and ICU and pediatrics and cancer and hospice and death and dying. And as a clinician, you're just used to that. You just take it and you store it in an area of your mind. And if you're lucky, you get to process that. We don't have trauma recovery for nurses that are experiencing trauma on the job, and we are experiencing trauma on the job every
Yes.
single day. And there's stories that I could get into over and over and over from what we've seen and what we've experienced, what I've experienced and what I've heard from other nurses. So you have this in the background humming, and then you can imagine as a clinician getting sick, doing
Right.
everything that the doctor said, nothing working, pharmaceuticals, surgeries, nothing working, like on over 18 pharmaceuticals. We see this over and over and over again. Surgeries being denied, surgeries being delayed, surgeries not being approved, having to go to court to get surgery, then finding out that the surgery doesn't work anyway. So you go on and on and on. These patients are suffering. So you can
Right.
imagine as a clinician, nurse going from high functioning to not functioning at all, medical pharmaceutical trauma. Then you figure all the trauma from the past comes surfacing because you're not in a place to process
Exactly.
emotions effectively. So a lot of times what we see with people that have trauma is that the cannabis is great at working at physiological symptoms, that rest and digest, getting us back into parasympathetic, helping us, to get into that homeostasis. But then there's our brain chemistry. We're humans. We're in this human meat suit, I call it.
Yes.
And this ego part of us is part of our personality. We can't have egoectomies. It's just not possible. But what we can do is we can learn how to take care of it, not
Yeah.
let ego run the show. This is where spirituality comes in. This is where that woo woo of psychedelics starts to come in. And we need to learn, we train our egos. And that's where I have found psychedelic assisted therapy to be very beneficial to help quiet the personality, the fearful internal traumatized child that just wants to feel good and who's scared but doesn't know what to do. And so it's really what I've learned from psychedelics. The psychedelics have helped me to start parenting myself, right? It's a way of reparenting myself into a space of you can do this, you can do this. And it sounds hokey, but it works. And there have been so many different psychedelic experiences that I've actually have popped up into my head when I've been in a trauma response. And it's unbelievable. So I would be in a trauma response. I would be triggered. One of them was in the airport. It's a really long story. I thought I was going to have a panic attack and die. I'm kidding. And I was with one of my nursing colleagues, and she's also a psychedelic nurse and a cannabis nurse. And she said, let's go back to that journey that we had when I had that magic wand. And let's just pretend we're going to magic wand our way right through the airport. Okay, so this is me, not under the guise of psychedelics, have a little bit of CBD on board, but was able to shift my perception in a moment in time instantaneously to where I felt safe and comfortable under the guise of this psychedelic nurse. And I could bring that experience back into my conscious awareness and walk through the airport with this pretend wand in my hand like a champ. Right. Tell me that isn't a beautiful thing to be able to do. I didn't have to reach for a Xanax or a pill or have to go sit in the bathroom and cry and change my flight. And like literally the people need to have access to this. Yeah. And I wasn't taking psychedelics in the airport. It was just a memory going back.
Exactly. And I think you bring up a really great point that I want to stress to people as well, is the integration piece of doing psychedelic assisted therapy, because I think my opinion, and also the literature supports it as well, that the integration is as important, if not more important, so that you can do what you did and integrate it into your life. So a lot of people, when they hear my story and all they hear is like you went on these 4 journeys, like what a blast, that must have been, they want to like do it too. But the truth is it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and you have to show up to therapy and do your journaling. And a lot of times it's not fun on the journey because things are coming up. Actually, none of mine have been fun. It was I'm like, when's the fun happen? None of them have actually been fun, but it was an incredible experience that I had learned a lot and had an enormous release and insights. And so to have that person, a guide, a therapist, someone to work through what you experienced is really key, because otherwise it's just like a trip on that day.
It's really, and it was interesting too. So when I've been explaining this, we're meeting people on our journey, and people want to know what we do, and we talk about it, and they have those questions, and I just try to give the analogy. Okay, imagine you go on vacation. Okay, here you go. You go on vacation for a week. You plan your trip, you pack your bags, you get in your car, you drive, you go have this amazing experience with friends and family and eating and having a good time and doing these activities, and then you drive home, and then what do? You go back to your regular activities of daily living. Well, psychedelic journeying mimics that, but you're in a contained space, hopefully with someone that knows what they're doing, that's guiding you on this journey to have these experiences. There's different activities that you can do while you're under the influence. You can just do it quiet. You can have a mindful on. You can be in nature. There's so many different things that you can do along with it. And so what I explain to them is you have these very, very rich experiences like you're going on a vacation. And basically when you come back, right, you have a lot of information. Oh my goodness, I remember this, I remember that, I had this experience. And then that journaling and that processing, so you have all of these things that come up that can be worked on. And so what we find is you may have these experiences, but it's over time that the information starts to unfold. Little by little, gradually, when you have those, I call them those aha moments, those.
That is so true. So true. And like my example of enrolling in school, okay, that happened really fast. And some of the things were quite instantaneous. However, there were things where I'm like a couple of months later that I didn't even notice was happening. And I'm like, wow, I don't even really do that anymore, or think that anymore. And it's just, can be sort of an insidious, but it is also, there are also things I'm still working on, frankly. So still things
peeling back those layers, right? Peeling back those layers. So it was, okay, so it was NMDA for 2 journeys. The rest of them were psilocybin. You told us about our fourth journey. What journey had the most impact on you? What experience would you say impacted you the most, and what did you bring back from it?
Wow. Okay. So I would have to say that all of them were in just different ways. Like definitely, all of them were rich in experience and growth. I would say also the first one was a definite change for me, because you kind of experience the other worlds and you're like, wow, the essence, consciousness, and nothing really is the same after that.
It's not. It's really not.
The other one has a lot to do with my dad, who passed away several years ago. And on one of the journeys, I felt like his energy, and this was a psilocybin. And basically, there was a lot of peace that I left that journey with. Like, this is the difference between cognitive talk therapy and this, is I could sit in therapy and talk about my dad and a situation surrounding his death and guilt and anger and all of it. I could talk until, the cows come home, and then it resurfaces. This was where I had an experience as such that all of those questions and feelings were answered in that experience, when I was able to really go in and connect. And I remember being like, wow, like I had it all wrong. Like I was thinking about not the right questions, or being caught up in this story. And we are not our story.
I love
And
that, the story. We're master storytellers.
yes, we are. And then that ego mind will try so hard to hold on to the story.
Hang on to it.
So it was very intense, and it was very amazing. And I left with a feeling that he was saying, don't make my whole life be about the death. You're making it be just about this snippet of his death, and not this entire lifetime that he had of being the amazing person that he was. And it sort of just like got me out of, you know, uh, some pieces that I often circle back to about anger and guilt. But it's like, no, I'm not attached to that anymore. It's like his whole life, and feeling that connection with him. So that was probably the most significant.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So now you are learning about psychedelics. You
Yes.
are actually creating a program for us. News alert, news alert. We have Nurse Gina Feletarhas, who is creating our psychedelic program that is going to be for both patients and providers, and introductory to psychedelics. You've been working on it. I've been taking a peek at it. It's absolutely amazing. So since you've been digging into this, it's so great. We've had a couple conversations off the clock. What have you learned the most since starting to write about this psychedelic self-paced program?
Yes. So, in much the same way that I was in shock learning about the endocannabinoid system, like, why doesn't everybody know this? I am basically replaying that because I will come through a piece of research and just be like, what? Like, everyone needs to know this. So there is so much that I have learned. And I know this sounds cliche, but I think probably we all feel like this, is that we want to give back, how you had shared what you went through, and now you're passionate about the cause. And I think we want to give back and help people experience the way that we have grown and healed. And so I keep thinking about that during all of the research, but it is really exciting. And what I would love for people to know is, and someone just told me this the other day. She was like, well, yeah, that's going to be exciting as soon as they do more research. And I just want everyone to know there is already a ton of research, and a lot of it came back in the 50s and 60s. So much psychedelic assisted therapy had already been done. They know it helps alcoholism and depression and PTSD, and the list goes on. They all have already known this. And then when the laws changed in 1970, 71 with the Substance Controlled Act, it was literally just squashed and came to a halt, which is horrible because it has done such a disservice for people's healing and medicine. And so one fact that I want to say, so Johns Hopkins has so much research. You can go to their website and see a list as how long that they have actually been doing this. And I took actually a piece that their founder of Johns Hopkins Psychedelic Research Center is, their studies are showing that in simply 1 or 2 psilocybin experiences is relieving depression, and that's it. It's showing that it can basically stop depression. Now compare that against all of the antidepressants and the issues with those, the interactions, the side effects, exactly. Sometimes they don't work, treatment-resistant depression, so which is always ongoing and forever and ever. So this is huge news of what they're finding. And also, I want to put in a little disclaimer is that we're not saying for everybody to just stop your medications and go find some mushrooms, because we're not saying that. You would want to do that under the guidance and responsibly of a medical
clinician.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is really amazing what psychedelics can do for so many patients. And the Schedule 1 thing is, I was just brought up a story that I've told before. The Schedule 1 thing is damaging and harming our children. I want people to think about that. The Schedule 1 thing is harming our children because cannabis is on there, number 1. And it's Schedule 1 says that there is no medical benefit, that it's going to be harmful. And the Schedule 1 is just really bad. And in Schedule 1, there's a lot of psychedelics that are on there. Cannabis is on there. Heroin is on there. And I took care of a child who was on heroin. He was 17 years old. And I'm going to share this again because it is really important. And he was on heroin, and we helped him get off of heroin using cannabis, believe it or not, dabbing cannabis and using a lot of CBD. It was a very, very interesting case, very interesting story, worked very closely with him and his family. And when I asked him, why did you choose heroin? Why? He goes, because you all lied. I go, what do you mean we all lied? He goes, well, heroin's on the same schedule as, this is an intelligence of an 18-year-old kid, 17 at the time, 18 when we had the post discussion of his recovery. And he basically said that you were all lying about cannabis. Cannabis is legal as medicine in so many different states, and it's legal for recreation in so many different states. So if you're lying about cannabis, why wouldn't you be lying about all these other things? So this
Wow.
is why Schedule 1 is harming our children, because they don't believe us. They see us as liars. Okay. That's
Wow.
concerning. That's
Yes.
very, very concerning to me.
Mhm.
And how interesting is that we're using another Schedule 1 drug to get them off of the heroin. So it was really, really, so not only are we working with, the physiological symptoms
Mhm.
of coming off of a substance, but we're also dealing with the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect of working through that and trying to help this kid not feel so unsafe around
Yes,
providers and people and adults. So it was very, very interesting case. So, really we need to,
that's really incredible. I know
yeah,
the schedule one. I mean, it just drives me crazy. In fact, another thing I had looked up today is the statistic, and you had brought up a few podcasts ago about 107,000 people died of opioid overdose in
yeah,
2021. I
yep.
believe you said, or 2020.
Yeah, I think I have a slide in there, but go ahead, keep talking. Yeah,
I saw this morning, it was from April of 2022, so a really recent statistic is 3 million Americans have opioid use disorder. 3
wow.
million. And people are exponentially dying more and more year after year. And yet it's cannabis that's Schedule
Wow.
1. It's never killed anyone. It's impossible. You
Yeah,
cannot
it's
be killed.
really, so we did a podcast on harm reduction. Okay. So addiction is a public health crisis. 740 billion it's
Wow.
costing us, right, to take care of these. So we talked about addiction. So this is a big one, right? Well, cannabis is the most frequently used substance. Addiction rates are at the lowest with those who use it, right? So 21% of Americans have an alcohol use disorder, 95,000 die annually. 14% of Americans overuse opioids, 24% of those become addicted. 20% of Americans use tobacco, most are addicted, and 480,000, it's almost 500,000 people die annually from tobacco. 49% of Americans use cannabis in the past year, and only 10% become addicted. And we need to really look at what does addiction mean, because it's different for everyone.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
that was a whole other podcast. So, we are making progress. So federally legal in Canada, look at this in Canada. 18%
Wow.
people eliminated alcohol altogether, right? Alcohol was reduced by 85%. This
Wow.
to me in and of itself is just enough
Yeah.
information for us to really stop, what are we doing, right? If you think about, people and cannabis, 20 to 35% reduction in opioid mortality, including reduction in physical and emotional pain and fewer opiates. So this is just really, really powerful stuff. Really, really important for us as clinicians to know about the endocannabinoid system, the
Mhm.
safe utilization of plant medicine and other progressive tools such as psychedelics. It's not going away, people. It's here to stay. And as the research, like people say, oh, we're scratching the tip of the iceberg. No, we're still standing on it. There's a lot of research on that iceberg, but we're going down these rabbit holes, and there's more and more and more that's being uncovered over time. And so as
Right.
clinicians, we have a responsibility, which brings me into the next topic before we wrap up, is using psychedelics and utilizing psychedelics. It's really, really important. This is where I get into the endocannabinoid system, to take care of our endocannabinoid system.
Yes.
Because if we're using psychedelics, you have to remember, what are we doing? We're working with our brain chemistry. We're flooding, all of these different neurotransmitters are being activated and stimulated and providing these experiences. And so oftentimes the next day, if people are having those big journeys, they can feel fatigued, right? And so it's
Mhm.
important, besides the gentleness and the kindness and the integration piece of it, is to do those loving things that support your endocannabinoid system, making sure that you stretch and you move and you take CBD. CBD has been a really, really great
Yes.
um, cannabinoid for a lot of different people the following day, even pre psychedelic use. I've seen people use cannabis during it to enhance the experience, and then high doses of CBD afterwards. it's really, really, important for people to pay attention, because when you're in that trip, you're in, but you're out of your body, right? It's kind of a weird
Yes.
thing to experience. And we have to remember when we come in our body, we have a body, right? And
Yes.
we got to take care of it. We got to make sure that we're hydrated and our temperature is okay and our blood sugar isn't low and that we're urinating. And it's, you need to look at all these things. People can have fun doing psychedelics, but for me, it's medicine,
Mhm.
and part of that medicine, when it starts to work, you have more fun in life because
Yes.
you're functioning on a different playing field. You're functioning from a place of feeling peace, internal peace. And then when you have that internal peace, the world around you looks a little bit different. And it's easier to have that empathy and that compassion for other people who
Yes.
haven't had those experiences.
That's so
So,
beautiful.
well,
That's
thanks. Thanks. I
that's
got to,
beautiful. I love that.
yeah. So we're going to be wrapping up. This has been an amazing podcast. I just want to ask, what has it been like working with us at Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse? I
Oh,
gotta get a plug.
yes, no, absolutely. So I have learned so much. I can't even, there's so many times that I just want to call you and go, did you know that? And like tell you something you already know. But I'm like, I can't even, uh, uh, it's been really amazing. And actually, um, that I'm so grateful to be able to have this opportunity to learn from two amazing pioneers and learning that you're also both very ambitious, and I've learned so many different ways that things that you have your you do programs, which, by the way, if there's any nurses that need to learn about the endocannabinoid system, definitely there is a program for you on holistic
Yes,
care.
there is. Yeah,
And
so Elizabeth has created these amazing programs, and for the month of October, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're doing a lecture actually next week, clinical conversations, cancer and cannabis, and for the whole month we have 25% off cancer and cannabis programs. So I just wanted to plug that. So yeah, so we do have these amazing programs that Elizabeth has written, and the part that I really love is that we're now going to be incorporating psychedelic into our platform, because truly,
Mhm.
when people are doing psychedelics, they really need to think about their endocannabinoid system, and pre,
Yes,
during, and post. So
it
it's going
is.
to be wonderful to have that information that you're creating.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your support in all of that. And Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse are probably the most comprehensive wealth of knowledge, is really the word that I was looking for, because you have so much knowledge to share in the programs and in coaching and in certain different types of support. So really every nurse, every human should really have access to it, but especially us as caregivers.
So this is where I'm going to plug the network. So Holistic Caring Network, where the Green Nurses are housed. So if you go to the website, you'll see a link that says join the network. It's free. This is also the link as well. I'll put it in the comments. And so the free network has an introductory to cannabis course that Elizabeth wrote, all of our podcasts, our webcasts. We have a free patient portal support, and it's a group of patients from across the globe. And we also have providers. So we would like to invite you into the community. Also like to invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, and you will get a free 7-page medical cannabis guide. Elizabeth and I spent a lot of time on that. It's really quite beautiful. And so we want to give that away to you. We promise we won't spam you. We have newsletters that go out once a month. And every now and then, if we have a special or there's an educational program that we're participating in, we might do a little blast, but I promise we won't spam you. But this free 7-page medical cannabis guide is really, really good. And then, like I said, too, next week we have clinical conversations. Elizabeth and I are going to be presenting on cancer and cannabis. Oftentimes we'll have, we hear these things. Oh my God, you have cancer? Don't do chemo. Oh my God, you have cancer? Don't do cannabis. Or you're going to use cannabis? You're going to use. there's so many conflicting
Right.
information, which leads the patients to think, what am I going to do to treat my cancer? And so we're going to really dive into, how we work with cancer patients, what is cancer, the types of cancer, general overview, how cannabis can help mitigate, side effects of conventional therapy, how cannabinoids can actually work on cancer cells in particular, and then just kind of give an overview of what we've seen in our practice as clinicians. So definitely join us next week for that. And we are wrapping up. Really, really appreciate you coming on here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it is. It's good stuff. And so we just went over time a little bit. If you guys have any questions at all, please put some comments and we can reply back to them. And happy to have you all here. Join us next week. We're going to be doing some more regular podcasting in November and December. And remember, everyone, what it's all about. It's about living your best life and helping others do the same. And we're going to end with another handy dandy little video that I love because it has so much meaning to me. And love you all.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses Group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.